Hello everyone, I am Cosmic and today we're going to be reviewing Crookz the Big Heist. Crookz is a tactical stealth strategy game developed by Skilltree Studios and published by Calypso Media Digital. Crookz places you in the control of a team of diverse professional thieves set in 1970s San Francisco. Crookz is a game essentially about stealing stuff. It's about conducting big heists. When you think of heists in video games today, you tend to think of games such as Payday and Grand Theft Auto. Essentially, it's all about stealing stuff with a heavy, high-octane action theme in the background, all about guns and explosions. In fact, very little is produced in recent times that takes a more stylized, strategic stealth approach to the age-old idea of breaking into vaults. Straight off the bat, it's refreshing to have a game that takes more of a style-filled, methodical Ocean's 11/Italian job approach to its mechanics and theme. Crookz uses a top-down camera similar to an RTS in that you can move the camera freely. Indeed, Crookz, in its core design, shares many features with real-time strategy games in both terms of mechanics and controls. The game takes place in real time, but you can pause time at any point, and you are allowed, when you pause, to issue commands. The controls themselves are simple and easy to learn. Crookz's core control feature is its pathing, in that you can plot out the path you wish your individual characters to take. This pathing allows you to essentially plan out every move and every action in one paused moment. The controls will be second nature to people who have played games like Commandos and other squad-based RTS games, and it's essentially about moving the camera with WASD and clicking on the screen, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Now, before we get into the mechanics of the game, let's touch base on the story. The game's story takes place in the 1970s, with all the big style, big personality, and of course, big hair of the era. The premise of the story is that a tightly knitted crew of professional thieves are betrayed on a heist of a precious lunar stone by their British acquaintance, because obviously the British always play the bad guys in these sorts of things. 5 years later, the crew slowly reforms to score more big cash and take their revenge. It's an okay story that doesn't take itself particularly too seriously, and it does contain some enjoyable voice acting. Sure, it's not great at times, but hearing terms like jive and you dig from characters called Cleopatra and Roxy is pretty funny and entertaining. There's plenty of humorous undertones in there, with some wacky fun stuff into the story that, while the story isn't particularly engrossing, it certainly is fun to go through and see what happens. The game houses two modes of play, being the main single-player campaign and challenge mode, in which you can compete on online scoreboards with other people. The single-player campaign itself consists of 18 story-driven missions that diversify in their locales and objectives, which is good, as lockpicking vaults for 18 levels could get very repetitive and boring fairly quickly. The level design itself, it's kind of varies in quality depending on the level. Many levels have several floors, which does add to the size and often the complexity of the level, but they all vary in terms of movement freedom. Some levels can be open plan, allowing you to tackle the objectives in whichever way you see fit. You can approach the level differently each time, and it will contain multiple paths to the same goal. Other levels, however, are fairly small and linear. They often force you to take a single path, and several even contain corridors, which is very boring, frustrating, and it's often lacking any fun or particular reason of why it's there. There are several playable characters to choose a team from, which for most levels allows you to select 4 to take on a job. Each character has a set of specific skills. For example, Cleopatra can run faster than all the others and can also run through laser beams, whereas Bishop, as the locksmith, is the only one who is able to pick locks without tools. The characters are all useful in certain levels in certain scenarios, and selecting your crew comes down to your own playstyle as well as the various puzzles that will be faced. Something which I personally enjoyed was the planning phase for a level, which works similar to the old Rainbow Six games, in which you can carefully view the blueprints of a level to see what you'll be up against. In this phase, you can scout the level, select your crew and equip them. There's a variety of equipment available to outfit your thieves with. Each piece of equipment costs money from the pool of cash that you'll earn from each successful heist. Each character can only carry 3 items at any one time, which does force you to plan ahead, but equipment can also be found in the level and used accordingly. Items do range from crowbars to unlock doors, to strong boxes, to chloroform for taking out the guards. There's a lot of equipment to use and some of it's pretty high tech and funny. As the game progresses, you'll gain access to more characters and equipment to play around with, which you can then take them to challenge mode to replay the older missions with new characters and equipment. Once you're done with the planning phase, the level will start in paused mode, in which you can path out your first moves. Now, while the pathing system does sound like it makes the game very easy, you will often have to pause the game to make quick snap decisions due to the changing guard patterns. One of the key difficulty mechanics in the game is timing. Timing your movements, flicking of switches, lockpicking of doors, it's all very crucial in terms of timing to help you get your objective without getting caught, which does make the levels somewhat tenser. With patrolling guards, cameras, lasers, switch doors and more, both timing and the teamwork of your crew is essential for not getting caught. Each level has 2 failure states. The first is the heat bar, which increases over time each time you're seen by a guard or a device, and should you fill that heat bar, the game will be over. The second is being arrested by a guard, which will result in an instant game over, which happens if you let a guard detect you and then get too close. The levels themselves are fairly enjoyable. There is a decent progression of difficulty in the puzzles that you'll face, much of them requiring teamwork. The pathing suffers some problems, occasionally with misclicks, and it can sometimes become a little finicky when setting up several actions in a row, plus trying to work out the timing, and occasionally if you misclick and the character does something odd, it will completely mess up everything that you've planned. And while there are a few problems with the usability of the mechanics in terms of the controls with misclicks and such, and you can often mess up your pathing and have to restart over, the mechanics themselves aren't really flawed by design. They're actually pretty well thought out and work relatively well within the confines of the setting of the game. Graphically, the art style of the game works very well. It's the 70s style is reinforced with the use of really vibrant colours and the cartoon-esque style that they use. There are some nice art assets in the game. However, I personally dislike the use of large icons for the items in the level. I thought it looked a bit tacky and almost looked like a cheap iOS game, which was a problem for me. It's a personal preference. Others may disagree, but it was something that I particularly didn't like the look of. But overall, it does a decent job. While the game certainly is not graphically impressive, it does the job of looking attractive in places. Some animations are a problem, however, like walking through doors. It's very odd that the characters have to face away and then turn around to open the door instead of just going through the door. It's animations like that, they do break the flow of the game, and they could have been a lot better. The game's soundtrack has a good mix of 70s style music that's pretty fun to listen to as you're playing. Like I've said, the voice acting isn't too bad. The problem is with the game overall is that the major issues with both audio and graphically is that there is a host of bugs. I think while I haven't encountered anything game breaking, the audio has bugged out almost every level with frequent popping or just turning on and off. There are frequent graphical problems with clipping, lighting issues, the pathing being shown even after you've deleted it, and more. It's pretty buggy. There is no way anything game hampering in there particularly. It's mostly just audio and graphical. I think that it does need to be sorted out. I know that the developers have said that they are aware of several audio and graphical bugs that they will be trying to iron out for day one, if not within the first week. So be aware there are quite a few audio and graphical bugs in there to be aware of. I think overall Crookz is a decent stealth tactical heist game. I feel it's oversimplistic in places and could have been done with a lot more difficulty being added in there, especially when there's only 18 levels to complete. I think I would have liked a little bit more complexity and difficulty in those levels. I personally would have liked larger levels with more emergent gameplay and fewer of the more linear levels. However, the range that the game does offer isn't bad at all. Now, while the challenge mode offers the game a little lifeline in terms of longevity, I personally think that a map editor for players to create their own maps and then play each other's maps would have been really beneficial for the game, and I think that is something that they really missed out on here. Now, there's around 10 plus hours of the game to play. That is if you're terrible at the game like me and have to do missions over and over and over because you keep messing up. I imagine that you could probably get through the single player campaign in just less than 10 hours if you're really good at it. I think the game is a good quality game. It's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. The price point is $30, and I think that at $30, with the amount of game that you actually get and the quality of it, it will satisfy fans of tactical stealth games that are interested in a heist game that's set in the 70s with a little bit of humour thrown in there that doesn't take itself too seriously. However, I think that if you're unsure of what you've already seen in this video and you're unsure if you'll like it or not, I would certainly wait for a sale and then pick it up on sale to see if you like it or if you don't. That is my review of Crookz the Big Heist. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.